What you focus on?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Lady K Chat podcast. You are here with your favorite host, Lady K. And if this is your first time tuning in, I am the one that do not hold her tongue back. I speak the truth with love. I mean well, but again, guys, I say it with love, but I'm going to give it to you raw. And today I'm definitely going to give it to you raw. I'm talking about settling. The name of the show is called I Settled. And a lot of us settled into relationships we should have one, never been in. And hold on, let me kick it up a notch. Not even just relationships or any relationships, marriages that we should not have been in. Hello, okay. So you know what? When I think about it, right? When I step back a little bit, right? Especially here in the Western Hemisphere, when I step back and I think about why some people or got married to the wrong person or got in a relationship with a person that they know they should not have been with. Honestly, on the real, when we get to the core in the roots, I feel one, it is due to a lack of information that we was missing before we went ahead and made this person our significant other or made this person being a long-term situation. One, right? Lack of information. I have to say that. Two, I definitely have to say some of us are hard-headed. I was hard-headed to a certain extent, right? And then the third one is not getting the right proper education on how to date. And then also four, I think also to self-esteem and values and morals are definitely a part of that component. So, just going back a little bit, how I say, here in the Western Hemisphere, like, we're raised a lot differently, right? So I have done some studying. I did some studying, and it comes to find out that a lot of different countries overseas, there's a lot of similarities, right? They believe in arranged marriages, right? But arranged marriages is just not formed like, they just find someone and just pair them together. No. From a young age, especially women, from a young age, the girl is groomed to be focused on the family's values, the morals, what type of significant other that they are looking to contribute to the family. Because let me tell you something, the reason why this is so important, but it's still, I still love the values behind it. It's so important is because they don't have a retirement system over there. Their retirement system is their family. So this is why they have to keep the family tradition and the trajectory keep going. Versus over here, we're in the United States, we got IRAs and 401ks and Social Security and things like that, right? So, but in these other countries, they depend on the next generation to carry things out so they can continue to have a life. Like, for example, like, mom and dad get old and, they're retired. Now it's time for the children to, take over maybe the family business, or the children to step up to take care of their families, their moms, their dad, their grandmas, and they live in these houses, all in the same houses, and they have the support system that is needed, right? Versus over here, we have so much land and freedom over here. It's like we don't have to. Now there are some people who do continue to have those. Like for me, I always tell people I didn't grow up in a single parent household. I grew up in a multi-generational household because one, why I had my mom and I had my grandmother. Now, even though my mom wasn't technically married, she still had a significant other, but it was just beautiful that, when I come home from school, I'm smelling the aroma of food being cooked because grandma's in the kitchen cooking, getting ready for her grandbabies. And I loved it. You know what I'm trying to say? So things like that, when we talk about the values and the morals and the family structure, that part was beautiful. But also, too, coming from that age, your parents, it's kind of funny, right? They'll tell you stuff like, oh, and from back then, right? Don't have sex. But they don't really tell you, like, don't really have why not to have sex. I think my grandmother told me that her mother told her, if you kiss a boy, you're gonna get pregnant, right? leaving out the spaces in between. That's just the starting point. If you kiss the boy, it's going to move on to something else. So, grandma got raised thinking, I can't kiss a boy or I'll get pregnant. So she she stayed away as long as possible. So I think also too, some of my teachers, it was like, no, don't have sex. It's like, you want to date a particular man, things like that. And of course, you got brothers and uncles and dads around, but they're different. Anybody that you bring around, they don't like. And I always thought that if I don't bring them around, they will survive. So I'm going to do another compare and contrast again. Over in the East, when it is time to pair with mates, like I said, even though they had people waiting and being paired together, right? They still gave them the ability to pick and choose, out of a lot of candidates, who they would want to pair with, right? So they didn't have a choice, but it still was arranged. However, the family gets to meet them because, of course, the family wants to see their values and their morals and just make sure it's an alignment of, where you guys were from and where you are guys are continue to head it. Over here, we'd be like, we don't want to introduce these people into our family, not realizing we should. It's really important because guess what? Let me tell you something. Your family is going to see some things that you have not seen. They're going to pick up on some things that you may not pick up. And it's always great to have those extra set of eyes. And you know what? And I'm just speaking from experience. I'm just being 100. That was my experience because I had, crazy men in my family that loved me very much. And I was like, oh, no, I don't want them to chase him away. Yeah, and I should have. The one that I settled for, I should have, So, fast forward growing up, I was taught also too that the woman does date, one guy at a time, you know, not realizing that men are prone to date multiple women until they find that one. So, we're taught to keep yourself and to keep yourself, holified, sanctified, and all of that good stuff, right? You make yourself that you're pure, you don't be out there. And that was always in my head. Like, I'm not the one to be out there sleeping around, just talking to different men. I don't want to talk to different men. I want to talk to them one at a time, not realizing that's not how the dating game works. You know what I'm saying? You date with the intent to collect information. That's what dating is. You're collecting data to see if that person is in alignment with your values and morals. Now, let's pause there for a second. If nobody is really teaching, how do you know? Now, some things does come natural, right? Like, for example, I'm a Christian. And for me, it does matter for me to get with a Christian man. Why? Because the walk that I'm on and the journey that I'm on is going to require for a man to be in the same faith as me. So what is that? That is a value that means so much to me. That is not a negotiable. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference. What they said, there's a difference between preference and standards, right? So when you talk about preference and standard, that value that I said that man has to be a Christian, that is a standard. Standards are non-negotiable. You don't change those because that is something that is a must. So, of course, back then, it wasn't as important to me when I was younger, but I had the belief, I thought about, this is a good aspect for me to carry on because, I went to church with my friends and I saw what it was like, and I'm like, oh no, this is cool. And again, I didn't take on so strong about that particular value, but of course now in the older age, I'm like, yes, that's definitely a must. Another thing too is like, how I view a lot of things that I saw in my family and outside of the family. I saw a lot of men out there cheating. And I could not stand it, guys. You know what I'm trying to say? And I was like, you know what? I do not want that because I saw that the men They were providers of their homes and they was taking care of their homes, but they was out there just doing foolishness. And I'm like, I knew for a fact I didn't want that. You know what I'm trying to say? And these are the things again that's non-negotiable. These are your standards. This is what you want the person to be held up to. So, like I said, some things came to mind of what you want your spouse to look like or what you want your significant other to look like, but you didn't realize, we didn't realize that values and the morals, it had a name to it, but we knew what we was kind of looking for. So again, I'm just coming and I'm just telling you my story, the Christian values background. A man who doesn't cheat, a man who treats me nice. But here's the thing back then too, like I didn't know exactly was high emotional intelligent was, right? But of course, when someone is highly educated, highly smart. And and I somewhat wanted that, but I also realized I was attracting a lot of men that they were learning from me. And it's like I also wanted to learn from them too. It's like, you don't want to be the only one because then you're draining. It's like if you're the constant person that's always giving out, giving out, giving out, who's gonna pour into you? So I did see myself, going through things like that, right? And I'm thinking, and someone told me, oh, if that man gets up and go to work every day, that's a good man right there. So I'm thinking again, that's supposed to be good enough, but it's somewhat to a degree. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, nah. And sometimes, even though like certain things are being taught to you, but you like, nah, this just don't feel right. So that was my perspective. That was my, point of view. Like this just don't feel right. This is what they said, but this is not sufficient enough for me. So you got to understand, even though some things you might have been taught and you have been educated and you have been instilled in you, but you also got to figure out what is working for me, what I'm saying? Because you are a different individual. You might be a different individual from mom and grandma, because I know I am. They come from a completely different era, what I'm trying to say? So we have to make sure that, it's feeling right with us, what I'm saying? And to choose that person that a fact that if you do decide to have a family with this person, that of course this person is family oriented. Of course that was big to me. Is that big to you? I want to know if that's big to you. Is family oriented big to you? Do you want them to get along with your family? Do you want them to go to events with you? I understand people say, I married the person, but technically they married you and your family and vice versa. So it was like, I understand in the beginning, that's what you look for, that's what you want. And of course, maybe towards the end, things might not be the same because, things happen in family, events happen, people die, the matriarch, is withering off, the patriarch is withering off. And now you got these young folks, they lost, they don't know what to do. Now there's a whole new dynamic moving in. You see what I'm saying? So I get it in the beginning that you want this person to be a certain way, but then life happens, events happen, and it might change. You can't control that, but at least in the beginning you want to define what type of characteristic does this person display. Do they show that they are willing to work with you and and help you through what you may experience. Now of course I always say this too, right? If you got baggage, take that to therapy. Your significant other is not your therapist, so it is not cool for you to go ahead and just dump everything that you're going through onto them, because nobody wants to deal with that. That is very tiring, you feel me? So but if they're willing to work with you and say, you know what, you need therapy, I'm gonna allow you to go to therapy and work through your issues. I still love you. I still see you as a great person. You're a great mom, dad, sister, brother, uncle. You love kids. You're patient with the kids. You love on the kids. You give your all, on family values, and that's something that makes you feel good at the end of the day. You know what I'm trying to say? Or, oh, ladies, oh, I'm sorry if I scared you guys. But I definitely have to say this one. A man who displays effective leadership. I see women that they are with the man. They see he's an excellent provider. He does what he has to do for his family, but his leadership skills is not the way that you want it, but you still end up with him. And everything that I'm speaking about, this is why we settle, because it don't just start because it just happened. There's a root from it. It started from the beginning. It started from childhood, things that we came across, things that we see, a lot of broken trauma, unhealed. Oh my gosh, unhealed trauma. It's just so much, you know what I'm saying? So much to unpack. Because when we really sit there and we think about it, we was like, what the hell was I thinking about? And when you sit there and you start to unpack, you be like, yo, how do I feel about myself? Ooh, ooh, that's the root. How do I feel about myself? Yo, I remember they said grandma put half a turkey in the oven, and she cooked it for 6 hours and then did the other half out there. So that took a total of 12 hours, not realizing your grandma had to create that recipe because of the stove. The stove wasn't big enough to put the full turkey in it. So now we're over here carrying mentalities that we have no idea what is the story of it. But when we start to sit there and we start to unpack, we were like, oh. And this is why it's so important to sometimes know why people do certain things, because you just be like, well, grandma did it, so I'm just going to do it. And this is where we get that uh, ideologies, mentalities, and then we wonder why it go forward. This is why we always say, like, when do we stop the generational curses, or when do we break these generational habits, a lot of bad habits, but at the same time too, talking about our community, we already know where we came from, where we transpired from. A lot of it stems from slavery. So there was a lot of slavery mentality that just got put into our family on certain things and how we saw it. And then while we continue to go forward with it, but now since we're at the day and space that technology has advanced, there is no way, shape, or form why we should not have the information that we need right now, especially like when it comes to dating. We done made so many mistakes that, and a lot of people say this, right? They be like, oh, so when you was younger, you didn't give time to certain day and time because you was too busy chasing Dick the Jock. And that is true, but at the same time too, you're young and your eyes are all googly, but it doesn't replace the person's value. It's just that we're seeing things differently. But we do have to teach our kids, like, hey, you know what, such and such may not look like Sarah the cheerleader, but at the same time too, you have to ask yourself, is she kind to you? Does she treat you with respect? you know um what are her family values are like? Things like the little things like that. We have to just stop and just think about that in your free time. What do you love to do? Things like that. Things of honor, things that have substance to it, that has grace to it. And that's another thing too, giving our own self grace from what we came from. Because now we have cultivate ourselves to this person that we have grew, that we are understanding some things from our past, why we did certain things and why we're no longer taking them with us, and why we're not settling. We're not settling no more. You settling for the person. I'm gonna be real. I think I'm gonna tell you my story. I think one time I'm gonna be 100 transparent. I thought, like, oh, this person was offering me something. I'm like, well, you know what? And here's the thing too, because I was taught this bad behavior, but you know what? When good people come around, you jump on it. But guess what? Everyone is not good for you. That was the part that was missing. Everyone ain't good for you, and they ain't good to you. They sending a representative. You know how that go. You see it for 6 months, and then then you see something else. So we're at the point where we're paying attention to flags. We're and let me tell you something about flags. Nobody is perfect, but you really gotta ask yourself about the core values, in your morals. This is why, after you done made your mistakes, it's important for you to write it down and say, you know what? Moving forward, what am I looking for? Moving forward, what do I want? Moving forward, what's important to me? Is marriage important to you? Is having a partner that's important to you? What does this season in your life look like? Hold on, I got one more thing. And in this season that you're in, how is it going to help you or help the generations to come? Because that's where our minds need to be at, because it doesn't just stop with us. It starts with us. So we have to put ourselves in that position to think about, listen, it's not about me. It starts with me. But what do I want for my kids? What do I want for my grandchildren? What do I want for my great greats? And this is why these big organizations are over there building like that, and they're going hard. And I have to say this. I definitely have to say this because I know right now this is floating around. Where a man takes you does not determine his value. There are so many men. Right now I'm speaking particularly to the ladies. There are so many men out there right now because they've been conditioned to put in the mind frame to be providers. So they're taking out ladies that don't appreciate them. They're taking out women who just want a free meal. And you're saying, well, it cost me $25 to get my hair done. It cost me 50 to get my nails done. I'm not doing all of that just to go out and on a $10 date. Why not? Because guess what? Let me tell you something, my dear. Before you went on that date with him, you should have been vetting him. You should have been asking the right questions. You should have heard some key core values before you even proceed to go into the next, to move it forward to the next date. Remember, dating is collecting data. So if you feel like I just want to be in your presence and I just want to go for a walk in the park with you, or I just want to go sit down and have coffee with you, or I just want to go ahead and go play pool with you, I want to go bowling with you, whatever the case may be, because when you see people in these elements, you see how they are. Are they competitive? Are they combative? Do they talk crap? Can they hold their temper? You know what I'm saying? You get to see these things. So you won't settle moving forward. So now you're in awareness of how they operate. So I really hope that this settled with some people because, we're in a different, like I said, we're in a different stage and age from where we came from and the things that we were taught. So I'm hoping that a lot of things that you was taught, and of course, I'm pretty much sure that a lot of things that you was taught, the experience that you carry with you, you drop some of those things that you be like, nah, this ain't working. And then you adapt to some new things that's going to work and flow for you. Because, things are just going to move ahead, right? We acknowledge we settled for the wrong reasons. And now that we're at this point, like I said, it's all about moving forward and just being gracious to ourselves. Just being more key, being on one point. But the key thing was just to get to the root of why did I settle? And I said, we settled because all of these different variables. One, the values and morals wasn't intact. Two, maybe some things that we did not learn. Three, how we really feel about ourselves will come out in the light. And then four, I'm gonna be honest with you, our experience. Our experience definitely have mold and shape us. I speak to so many women that say, I went through X, Y, and Z, and I'm not gonna find love. I keep, running into the same type of person, and I have to say this, and this is for both men and women. If you keep bumping into the same person, and when I say the same person, the same familiar spirit, of course, different faces, that is when you have to stop and you have to pause and you have to assess yourself, because now at this time you're the common denominator. So you got to ask yourself what's going on with you internally, and it's okay to pause, because if you're seeing some funky stuff, you can't get mad at no one but yourself. But you don't even have to be mad. It's more of you just being in awareness and just seeing what do you need to do and how can you tackle that and nip it in the bud. So moving forward, things will look different for you. So if this resonated with you, I want you to drop a comment below. I want you to like it. And I want you to share it with your brother and your sister. We are talking about I settle. I have identified why we have settled. We ain't doing it no more. We in a different day and age. We going, y'all go, well, y'all, I ain't going. Y'all going to the Cheesecake Factory and the Waffle House. I don't go there because I ain't their target audience. Okay. And guess what? The person that's gonna be with me, they're going to know that. So they're not gonna even take me to that space. They're gonna make sure, hey, wherever I take her, it has to be at a vegan friendly place, and they're willing to cater to her needs. And that's the key thing too. When a person, and on this note, when a person takes you into consideration about who you are and certain things that you like, that right there, that says a lot. And they continue to display that says a lot about themselves. And it shows how they value you and they respect you. And I think that's some good morals to have. So, with that being said, everybody, please definitely subscribe to the channel. You will see me here next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I thank you for following me here at Lady K Chat Podcast. Have a good night.
Lady K.